What's up guys, it's Legend X Rona, and today I'm going to discuss possible character reveals coming to Injustice 2 entering 2017 in the coming months up until the release of the game. Now as you guys already know, we haven't gotten any Injustice 2 news for a while, not since the Harley Quinn and Deadshot reveal back in August. With that being said though, that hasn't stopped Ed Boon from tweeting about any possible character reveals for the future. So in this video, I'm going to discuss all the characters that we could possibly see revealed soon based off of Ed's tweets, along with possible DLC characters. Now before we get started, note I will mainly be discussing characters that received positive / non-avoiding responses. So let's go ahead and jump right into the video. Okay, so the first character I'm going to talk about is Swamp Thing. Now Swamp Thing is a character that people have been talking about being in Injustice since the first game. A while back during the summer, Ed Boon had acknowledged Swamp Thing by putting him in a voting poll with Blue Beetle and Captain Cold, asking, who do you most want to see in Injustice 2? Now the winner of the poll was actually Blue Beetle, who's later revealed to be in the game, but Ed Boon did acknowledge the idea of Swamp Thing closely coming in second. He also later quoted a tweet saying, a reminder at Ed Boon for you not to forget about Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy in Injustice 2, with him simply responding with nice. If you follow Ed Boon on Twitter, you really know how cryptic his tweets can be. You really have to think hard about what he's getting at. Honestly, I believe that poll was actually a poll seeing who they would reveal next for the game, and all those characters that were in the poll were actually going to be in the game. We already got Blue Beetle, and I'm sure that Captain Cold will be in the game, which I will explain later in the video, so I really think that Swamp Thing will actually be in the game too. Swamp Thing could be a really cool tank character in my opinion and have really cool gameplay with the manipulation powers over plants. With many more characters having yet to be revealed, I do believe that Swamp Thing will possibly be one of the characters that we will see coming in 2017 in the coming months up until the game is released. Now Poison Ivy is another character that is frequently demanded by fans. After being asked several times about Poison Ivy on Twitter by fans, Ed Boon finally addressed a tweet asking, could we possibly see Poison Ivy for Injustice 2? By quoting it and saying definitely possible. Not to mention the tweet I mentioned previously on the Swamp Thing where someone asked Ed not to forget Poison Ivy and Swamp Thing also. So with that being said, does she really have a chance of being in the game? Personally, I definitely think so. Should be a new character in the Injustice game. She's often demanded by fans, and the fact that Ed Boon quoted a tweet a while back saying that there will certainly be more girl power on the Injustice 2 roster just boosts her chances up even more to me. So with all that being said, I think that Poison Ivy will definitely be a character that we can expect to see revealed in the coming months up until the game's release. On to the next character, we have Captain Cold. Now I mentioned Captain Cold earlier in the video about the tweet that had the voting poll with him, Swamp Thing, and Blue Beetle on it. Not too long ago, Ed had made a tweet about how a Chicago Bears game would be the coldest ever if the temperature dropped to below 2 degrees. Someone had replied to that tweet saying, Captain Cold likes this, which Ed Boon had quoted and said I'd imagine he would. Like I said before, all the characters that were in that voting poll will probably be put into the game. My reason for that is that due to Blue Beetle already being added to the game after him winning the poll, and the fact that Captain Cold has already pretty much been confirmed. In the picture of the Injustice 2 shirts, you can actually see Captain Cold's freeze gun as one of the icons on the shirt. So with that being said, that pretty much kind of confirms him to be in the game. Why else would they advertise this weapon on the shirt along with icons of other confirmed characters to be in the game? Now personally, I would rather prefer to have Killer Frost again or maybe Mr. Freeze, but I'm okay with us getting Captain Cold instead. But with the shirt pretty much confirming him to be in, I think that Captain Cold is a character that we can expect to see revealed in the coming months up until the game's release. Being another new character that's demanded for it, Dr.Fate was just recently mentioned by Ed Boon in a tweet not too long ago. Someone had said that Ed, yo, at Ed Boon, is my favorite character Dr.Fate going to be in Injustice 2, which Ed quoted with, one of my favorites too. Now of course this alone wouldn't be enough to say that he's going to be in the game or he's going to be getting revealed soon, but just like Captain Cold, he was also pretty much confirmed to be in the game as well. Looking back at the Injustice 2 shirt from before, you can actually see that Dr. Fate's helmet is on the shirt as well. Like I said before, what would be the point of advertising a character's icon on the shirt if they weren't going to be playable? Dr. Fate would be a cool addition to the game as a new character, and he could have some awesome gameplay with his magical abilities. We definitely at one point will be seeing Dr. Fate get revealed in the coming months before Injustice 2's release. Black Canary is also a character that I've seen be frequently asked for by fans. She was recently mentioned by Ed Boon in a tweet that he quoted where someone said to him, "I love canaries, don't you?" Which he replied with, "Only black ones," and Adam's winking face. Now, Black Canary has also been in the hit DC shows Arrow and The Flash, so I feel as if since she does have that current exposure, that should boost her chances up even more. NetherRealm Studios seem to be taking advantage of the DC movies being released, such as how they revealed Harley Quinn and Deadshot right after the Suicide Squad movie was released. So I feel like they will try to choose a bit of characters who are relevant in the entertainment business. Black Canary being in both Arrow and The Flash should give her some kind of relevance. Ed promised that there would be more girls on the Injustice 2 roster, so I definitely feel like she's a character who could be added into the game. Black Adam is a character who was in the previous game that could possibly make a return in Injustice 2. The only tweet that he was actually mentioned in though was the same one that Black Canary was mentioned in, which doesn't exactly say much, but for Ed to mention him out of nowhere, I feel like that does mean something. With that being said, there's going to be more villains added to the game along with some returning characters. So far we haven't had any returning villain characters, so I think that Black Adam could be one. Though I don't think that death plays a role in the roster, I think that it should be noted that he didn't die in either universe in the last game. So maybe Black Adam could possibly be a returning character that we could see added into the game in the coming months. Catwoman is a very popular character in the DC universe, and she's often been asked to make a return in Injustice 2. She was mentioned in a tweet by someone who said to Ed Boon, "Please don't forget about Catwoman," which he responded with, "We shan't." Like I said, she's a very popular character who is often asked to be in the game, so I wouldn't see why they wouldn't make her a returning character for Injustice 2. With much more space still left on the roster for more female characters, I'm almost certain that she will be one of the females added into the game. Starfire is a frequently asked for character and a character I personally want to see as well in Injustice 2. Ed has actually mentioned her several times in his tweets, starting with this one, which was a voting poll that contained her, Constantine, and Black Manta. Now, Starfire was the winner of the poll, which Ed Boon had released the results saying, "So you guys really want to see Starfire in Injustice 2? Duly noted." She was also mentioned when someone said to Ed, "Announce Starfire," and he responded simply with Starfire! With all that being said, I really think that Starfire has a high chance of being in the game, though I will say that that voting poll has me scared just a bit, because when he posted it, it said, "Okay, just for fun," in quotes, Injustice 2, who do you want to see the most? I'm hoping that doesn't mean that he's planning on making her a DLC character instead of main roster. This could have been one of those polls that he made to test to see which character he should have as DLC added into the game. A lot of people want to see her in the game, including me, and he promised more females on the main roster. I'm not doubting that she won't be in the game, but I'm scared that there might be a possibility that she could not be there on day one of the game and possibly be DLC, so I do hope that we can possibly see her revealed in the main roster in the coming months before the game is released. Now, Beast Boy is just one of those characters that everybody and their mother wants to see in the game, including me and my mother. I mean, all the times that people on Twitter have asked Ed about Beast Boy, he finally responded once when someone said to him, "Beast Boy, ? Which he responded with, "Could be very cool." Which we all know would be very cool. Could you imagine how they would have his gameplay with him changing into all these different animals in the game? That definitely would be the most unique gameplay in the game possibly, and I'm sure everybody would want to see that in the game. I would love to see Beast Boy added into the game, and I'm hoping that he's one of the characters to get revealed onto the main roster in the coming months before the game is released, and if he's not on the main roster, then hopefully we could possibly get him as a DLC character then. Red Hood is another character that everybody agrees should be in the game. Now, he's probably been mentioned by Ed Boon and fans and tweets the most out of every character in this video. He has been asked to be put in the game since the very first Injustice game, and one of the first tweets that he was mentioned in since the announcement of Injustice 2 was Ed explaining how Joker was the Red Hood before Jason Todd became the Red Hood. Shortly after, he created a voting poll asking which Red Hood we'd rather see in the game, Joker Red Hood or Jason Todd Red Hood. Now obviously the Jason Todd Red Hood won by a pretty big margin, but at the same time that doesn't stop Joker from having a Red Hood costume thanks to the gear system, so that's something I definitely think we could see in the game. Ed later mentioned Red Hood again, asking who do we want to see the most in Injustice 2? Robin Tim Drake, Nightwing, or Red Hood? And once again Red Hood won, with Ed responding to the poll saying, "So yeah, I take it you guys want to see Red Hood in Injustice 2, using the 2 meaning also instead of the number 2. Having been asked for since the very first Injustice game, I'm sure that Ed will make the obvious decision to put Red Hood on the main roster for Injustice 2. I will say though that his response to the first poll kind of had me scared a bit, because he said 15,000 spoke, and for no reason why, looks like Red Hood Joker, he's no man's buy, with no man's buy in quotes. I'm hoping that doesn't indicate that there's a plan to possibly make Red Hood DLC character instead of being main roster from the beginning. I mean, from a business standpoint, it would be kind of smart because many people would want to buy him because so many people want him playable in the game, and I just feel like that would just be terrible to ignore the fans and just have him as a DLC character and not have him included in the game from the very start. So nonetheless, I do think that Red Hood is definitely a character that we will see revealed in some manner in the coming months, and I'm just hoping that he's main roster and not a DLC character. Firestorm is a character that I personally don't know too much about, but I will say that he does look like a pretty cool character and I wouldn't mind having him in the game. He was mentioned in a tweet by Ed Boon not too long ago when someone asked him, "Hey Ed, any chance of having Firestorm on Injustice 2? With Ed responding with, "A chance? Yes." Now that doesn't necessarily mean that he will be added to the game, but it does mean that it's a thought. Going back onto the topic of NetherRealm Studios adding characters based on movies/shows, Firestorm is a character that appeared on The Flash, and he's also one of the characters that are in the show Legends of Tomorrow, so I feel like there is a chance for him. I do think that it would be cool to have a character who uses fire to fight against characters who use ice like Captain Cold, but that's just a random thought of mine. Regardless, I think that Firestorm does have a chance of possibly being revealed in the coming months for Injustice 2, if Ed decides to go with that. Being a huge subject of discussion for Injustice 2, Darkseid is a character who could possibly play a big role in the game if he's in, due to the chance of him being the main villain. Recently, Ed Boon mentioned him in a tweet when someone said, "MK and Injustice are awesome. I'm looking forward to see Darkseid at Injustice 2. Any chance? And Ed responded simply by saying, "Yes, there is a chance." Now the idea of Darkseid being in the game is a very thoughtful topic because many people think that Darkseid could possibly be the main villain in the game, so Ed saying that he will be in the game is kind of like a spoiler towards him possibly being the villain if he were to say that. Now I know that I can't necessarily say that if he's in he will be the main villain, but being one of the most powerful and iconic villains in DC, you couldn't just imagine him being a character that's in the game and not playing such a big role as the main villain in the game. However, it is a possibility that it could happen that way, but that is a topic for a different video. Regardless of whether he's the main villain or not, I do think that he does have a really good chance of being one of the characters added into the game in the coming months before its release. Now the last DC character that I will be talking about is Hawkman. Hawkman was recently mentioned in a tweet by Ed Boon when someone said it would be unjust to not add Hawkman in Injustice 2, and Ed Boon responded saying, "I get it, unjust." Now this wasn't exactly a positive nor a negative response, but it is a reference. Personally, I like Hawkgirl better, and I think that she has a better chance of returning in the game instead of us getting Hawkman. However, he does have a form of demand by fans evidently for someone to have asked this, so there is a chance that they could switch them out and have him on the Injustice roster instead of Hawkgirl. Okay, so now that we've talked about all the DC characters that we could possibly see revealed soon, let's talk about the possible guest DLC characters that we could possibly see. Ed has been pretty talkative about possible guest characters we could see in the game, so the DLC roster is definitely a roster that many characters are fighting to be on, but here are a few tweets that we got from Ed discussing on some characters that we could possibly see in the future. Spawn is probably the most talked about and presumed guest character to be added in Injustice 2. He's been the topic of discussion since the days of Mortal Kombat X DLC, when a lot of people thought that he was going to be added into Mortal Kombat X's DLC. Personally, I think he would make a much better DLC character in Injustice than in Mortal Kombat. Now, Ed has mentioned him many times before, but since Injustice 2 was announced, there's only been several significant times where he was mentioned about him being in Injustice 2. The first time he was mentioned by Ed had made a poll asking best non-MK guests, with Spawn, Hellboy, Terminator, and Buffy. Now, before giving his full response to the poll, Ed had tweeted out a picture of Spawn saying, so, a lot of people like Spawn then, ? He then responded to the results of the poll saying, almost 3,000 of you let us know that you want to see Spawn in Injustice 2. Are you sure? ? Winking face. He then followed up with a tweet of a gif of Spawn saying, this guy? ? Hashtag Injustice 2. Then not too long ago he quoted a tweet where someone said, make the right call, hashtag Injustice 2, and it had a picture of a 4-film DVD case that had both Mortal Kombat movies, Mortal Kombat Legacy, and the Spawn movie. Ed's response was, oh wow, looks like we have to put Spawn in now. With all that being said, I think it's almost definite that Spawn will be a guest DLC character in Injustice 2, and more than likely he will be in the first wave of DLC for the game. Hellboy is another guest DLC character that we could possibly see added in the game as well. Now, he was mentioned in the voting poll that Spawn was in, which we all know that doesn't mean that he won the poll, but he did come in second. After Ed released the results of the poll, someone had commented on the tweet saying, no, we wanted Hellboy, wrong character, which Ed Boon responded with, what about both? ? Personally, I think Hellboy would make a great guest DLC character in the game. I never thought about him actually being a guest until this poll, but I think he will perfectly fit into the game. I think Hellboy does have a chance of being a guest DLC character in Wave 2 of DLC characters, if not Wave 1. Sub-Zero is an MK guest character that we all pretty much expected to be in the game after Scorpion was put in the last game, so him being added into the game was pretty much inevitable. Ed Boon mentioned Sub-Zero in a voting poll saying, best MK guest character, which had Sub-Zero, Raiden, Johnny Cage, and Jax on it. After Sub-Zero won with more than half of the votes, Ed Boon responded saying, almost 20,000 of you spoke, and it seems like Sub-Zero will be your choice of an MK guest character in Injustice 2. We hear ya. Now, Sub-Zero is my all-time favorite Mortal Kombat character, so I'm pretty excited to see him being put into the game, and I can't wait to see what kind of gameplay he will have in Injustice 2. I'm pretty sure that it's not the question to whether or not it's a possibility Sub-Zero will be a DLC character in Injustice 2, but the only question is, when will we actually see him revealed to be DLC for the game? The subject of Ermac and Reptile both being in Injustice 2 is a really iffy topic. Ed Boon had tweeted a while back a picture of a Big Mac, not even saying anything with the tweet. He then later quoted someone who commented on it saying, Ermac versus Big Mac, laughed my butt off, which Ed Boon said, I get it, to Max, smiley face. Then the following day he tweeted out a picture of Reptile saying, Reptile in Injustice 2, ? Ed somewhat hinting towards Ermac and pretty much flat out mentioning Reptile in Injustice 2 caught a lot of people's attention. So there's a chance that they both could possibly be in the game, but that would kind of take up a lot of space when it comes to adding guest DLC characters. Now, there is a possible theory that I won't take full credit for because Uncaged Games first mentioned something like this in one of his videos, but what if Ermac and Reptile were to be gear change characters for Sub-Zero? Now, this is something that I definitely can see happening. For the longest, most ninjas in the beginning of Mortal Kombat shared the same basic costume and were just color palette swaps of one another, so this would in a sense be like a reference to back in those days. Due to the old school color palette swap picture of Reptile that Ed Boon had tweeted out, I think that Sub-Zero might have a somewhat basic default costume in the game, which of course could always be changed to something different thanks to the gear feature, and then when you equip a specific gear item to him, it will allow you to be Reptile and Ermac in pretty much the same costume but in a different color. With this new gear system changing characters to other characters, it wouldn't surprise me to see them do this for Sub-Zero's character because it will allow them to add other ninjas into the game such as Ermac and Reptile without having to waste a roster spot for them. Now, do I think that if this happens, all the ninjas in Mortal Kombat will be in the game? No, but I do think that we could possibly see these two become gear system change characters, and maybe we might also get an extra ninja as well. Johnny Cage is an MK character who has also often been talked about being in Injustice 2. Ed mentioned him when he quoted a tweet when someone asked, "What about Johnny Cage?" Wait, it's too early to be discussing MK cameos, is it? Which Ed replied by saying he'd be a great guest character. Right after that was when Ed tweeted the voting poll with Sub-Zero, Johnny Cage, and the other MK characters asking who would be the best MK guest character for Injustice 2. Though Johnny Cage didn't win the poll, he did come in second place, which I would think would mean just a bit. I actually could somewhat see Johnny Cage being a guest character in Injustice 2 due to the simple fact that MKX emphasized Johnny and his power to fight the gods. With Injustice having the title of Gods Among Us, it wouldn't surprise me if they linked those two things together and possibly put him in the game. If Reptile and Ermac turned out to be gear switches for Sub-Zero, then I can definitely see Johnny Cage joining the Injustice 2 roster for the second wave of DLC if not the first. And that's all the characters I think we could possibly see revealed or talked about soon in the coming months. Now of course there are other characters to be revealed for the game. I'm sure that the next reveal that we will be getting will probably include Flash and or Green Lantern. We already know that they both are pretty much going to be in the game. Flash was already in the reveal trailer for the Injustice 2 game, and Green Lantern is an important member of the Justice League. I mean, we already have Atrocitus, so it would only be right to have a Green Lantern in the game as well. I will say though that there is a possibility that we could get John Stewart as Green Lantern instead of Hal Jordan. But that's just a small theory of mine which I might talk about later in a future video. Also, there was a tweet with the voting poll where Ed asked if we wanted to see any Watchmen characters in the game, which 74% of the people who voted said yes, so we could also possibly see a Watchmen character be announced as well. I also wanted to mention the tweet that Ed mentioned Scarlet in, where he said that she could possibly be a Red Lantern now that he thinks about it. Now I'm definitely not against her being in Injustice 2, but this would just mean that she would be another DLC character for the second time in a game, which Ed said he wouldn't resell any previous DLC. Granted, he didn't say whether that applies to the same series, but at the same time it's just about the same thing. I mean, she hasn't even been put into a game's main roster yet, which I feel like is crazy, but you never know, so I thought I would just go ahead and briefly mention this. Lastly, I wanted to mention one last possible MK guest in the game. With all the possibilities of the gear system change, it actually surprises me that a character like Triborg hasn't been talked about yet about being in Injustice 2, because they could easily use the gear system change to allow him to switch between Sector, Cyrax, Smoke, and Cyber Sub-Zero. I do think that that would be kind of cool. I mean, this whole idea of the gear system really could bring a lot to the game and the content and characters that it has. I'm not exactly saying that I do want Triborg to be a DLC character, but I really think it's interesting that they will be able to do things like this, and I really want to see how far they could take something like this in Injustice 2. So what do you guys think about us getting any of these characters revealed or in the game in the coming months? Are you excited for these characters, or are there other characters that you would like to see put into the game? Be sure to let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. I think I will be doing a roster prediction video and a video on characters who will probably be put into the game through the gear system as well. So if you want to see that, be sure to let me know in the comments section below, and also be sure to drop a like on this video because I would really appreciate the support. If you're new to my channel, be sure to check out my other videos and subscribe for more things Injustice. This is Legend X Ronin, and I'll see you guys later.